think Raila's calls for national referendum will actually succeed?
If Raila says referendum will happen, zero option. Because all you need are about 1 million, maybe 2 million signatures. And can Raila raise the 2 million signatures? Definitely. He was voted in by 4 point something million people. 5 million people, I think.
Okay, what do you think about how the situation was managed by the Jubilee side?
I must say that there was an element of evil genius in managing it. It came completely as a surprise to me. We done all manner of simulations about what could go wrong, what can be used to contain this. But with one thing we never saw was the best way to contain it is to give it a blackout. Raila had called for this rally so that he gets some kind of attention. And now that you've denied it, I thought that maybe they were going to go completely ballistic and say, we are going to show you what we are made of. But they never did it.
Okay, how do you think the Jubilee side is going to respond to these calls?
This is not a simultaneous game in game theory. This is what we call a sequential game. Raila throws ball, Uhuru kicks back ball, and so on. But Uhuru can also say that if you throw ball, I don't have to catch it. But my thinking is that this is Uhuru's time now to respond. And this is also his Machiavellian moment. It is Machiavellian moment in the sense that he can do all the things that he has been wanting to do and then blame them on the Sabasaba threats, doing cabinet reshuffle and a number of things I probably thinks he needs to do.
I attended the rally and the turnout was not what we expected, and of course the quad side of things blamed it on police blocking people from attending the rally. But do you think it's a sign of Kenyans saying they're tired of all this politics, that it's not the best time for Raila to be playing this sort of game?
Raila is a slow, punctured politician. It means that the pressure from his tires has been going down since the last election. And his traction is no longer there. And the simple people, what he would call earthlings that appear in his rally drinking bangi and other things, those people can see it. They were disappointed because they came for action and Raila gave them no action. So if there was no attendance or attendance was low, it's because people are saying, what is this that he will tell us that is new? And as I say, Raila, like any good politician, has 9 lives. And I think Raila just burnt his 9th life. I think the 9th life expired on Sabasaba. Because I think after Sabasaba, there can be no magic.
He went away to the States for 3 months and he came back. Was it initially an inspired idea?
When he went to the States, he went there to run away from a botched ODM election, but to also reflect. And when he came back, I was actually personally worried. What has Baba come home to do this time round? And I gave him the time of day. And I said, this man is known to be a political genius. He must be having something up his sleeve. But then the more he rendered whatever he had up his sleeves, the more it occurred to me that actually he had no plan. But that could also be wrong. I must correct that. Because maybe he discovered that the plan he had come back with was and is not working. And he'll say, if we cannot impeach Uhuru, then let's do a constitutional referendum and do a civilian coup using the people.
So if you were to advise Raila on the best way forward, what would that be?
If you had to look at some of these historical patterns, it would appear like the gods don't seem to sympathize with his cause. It is possible, and I could also be wrong on that one. But my persuasion is I don't think he'll become president. He is better off anointing somebody, and if dynasties are jealous institutions, which is something I've said in the past, then he had better start grooming Fidel and give it to Fidel. Fidel has the height of what the Jews would call a good leader. He's a tall 6-point-something guy. And I think he also has the rhetoric of his father and his grandfather. Groom the young guy. Let Fidel be the one to take Uhuru and Ruto. Now that would be magical.
And I think the whole successor debate came out in the ODM elections. Even with this rally, they've already been divisions. You see Ababu Namwamba was absent during these rallies. And then you have Kalonzo, and Kalonzo is also waiting by the wings. So how do you think that will play out, that relationship between Raila and his party members in Quad Coalition?
Kalonzo and Wetangula are like vouchers. Opportunistic, they're waiting for Raila to fall down dead politically so that they can feed on his carcasses. They are not there because they like Raila. Remember, Raila and Kalonzo have been bitter enemies during the Kibaki period. In my view, the fight within ODM is generational. Kalonzo cannot inherit Raila. The people to inherit Raila are going to be young members of parliament. Agostino Netos, the likes of Honorable Ken, the MP for Kisumu, and there are a few other such young MPs. And actually, Luo Nyanza has given us very brilliant young professional guys who can take over the leadership. But what they need to know is that they need to look at how Ruto took the leadership from Arap Moi. Because Ruto did not take the leadership from Moi by negotiating with Moi. He went and he grabbed it by force.
So is Kidero committing political suicide? Yesterday he snubbed the rally. During the homecoming rally, he was unable to speak because he was booed off stage.
Let's go back to history again. A man called Jimmy Orengo decided to go and run for presidency, and a nondescript party known as SDP. He was banished and he died politically. A few other such people have tried to actually defy Odinga in the Luo nation, and they have been finished politically. So Kidero cannot come in and try to reinvent history and reinvent the game, the rules of the game. He must comply. If Raila says you toe the line, you toe the line. But that also does mean that the Luo nation needs to liberate itself from the shackles of Raila.
KEPSA and the United Nations came out before the rally and expressed concern that this rally, the heightened political tensions in the country, are not good for business. It could lead to a repeat of 2000, the church as well, to a repeat of 2008. Is there a reason to be concerned?
I am not at all worried by the referendum. I don't think that this is likely to go south. These are just simple labor pains of a nation that is about to birth a new republic, the Third Republic. And for the Third Republic, which is led by a new generation of Kenyans, to be birthed, we have to go through many contradictions. And Sabasaba was the first labor pain. Actually, I thought the birthday was going to be on Sabasaba. I was wrong. We'll have a few more pains that will come in. The next pain will be the date of the referendum. And in my view, you do recall that every 5 years, Raila has forced a referendum bang in between. In 2005, in between Kibaki's first term, he forced a referendum. In 2010, in between the second Kibaki term, he forced a referendum. So why shouldn't he force a referendum now again? And he'll do it. And he forces a referendum not because he cares for constitutional issues necessarily, but he forces a referendum for purposes of, one, organizing himself and galvanizing and regimenting his entire force together, but two, preparing himself for the coming election. So in this particular case, he will be doing it for purposes of preparing himself for the coming election. But it is also possible that the referendum for him is a possibility of taking power from Uhuru, but through constitutional means.
The 13 demands by court, what are your thoughts?
There's only one demand by court, in my view, and the one demand is referendum. Because all the other 12 demands can be collapsed into issues that can be dealt with within the referendum. That was the one only demand, in my view, that is worth talking about. But there is a sub-demand from court that was not part of the 13. But it's a demand that a man by the name of Boni Halwale has repeated severally. Khalwale has said Raila is shy about being a kinyozi. But him is saying, I am also a kinyozi, I can nyoa Uhuru. And he has said repeatedly that bring him on. I will begin a motion that will work towards the impeachment of the president. If Uhuru is to be worried about a referendum, if I were him, I would worry more about impeachment. Reason being that if you bring the impeachment motion to Parliament, the numbers can get extremely tricky. You know, we've been saying that Jubilee has a tyranny of numbers within Parliament. To some extent, it's true. But there's an extent to which it is not. UDF, for instance, has fallen to Raila. Those are 12 members of Parliament. KANU has 6 members of Parliament. You don't know where they will go. Those are 18 members of Parliament. If you add all these numbers to the 136 that Raila is controlling, and if peradventure some of the URP ones abandon Uhuru and they go with Raila, you have a problem there, because what will happen is that you might end up raising the numbers that you require to impeach the president. So in my view, these two things we must watch out for. Referendum will happen, impeachment will happen, but will impeachment succeed? You cannot wait for it to be brought on the table and then you start asking whether it will succeed or not. You must nip it in the bud.
What is Raila's endgame?
Raila's endgame is to stop ethnic majoritarianism. Pure and simple. That it is not possible, and I agree with him, that it is not right, it is not possible for one or two communities to dominate the instruments of power. I don't think that they have taken over government the way Raila is saying. It is only that they have dominated presidency and deputy presidency, and then there is perception that they have occupied other positions. But even then, it is not right. Because what this means that in any subsequent elections in the future, the Kikuyus will always be either number 1 or number 2, purely on account of their numbers. So if that's the end game, what should Uhuru do about it? My thinking is that Uhuru must go back to the 2007 problem. What was the problem there? The problem was the presidency. Why was the presidency a problem? It was because it was dominated by one community. Was this resolved by the Katiba? Absolutely not. This constitution is half-baked. It will cause us political constipation. It never resolved the problems of 2007. If that's the case, then what Uhuru needs to do is to go back to how we resolved the 2007 crisis. This was resolved very simply through a constitutional formula given to us by Kofi Annan. And the formula was to say, take the presidency and slice it into 5 pieces. President, deputy president, prime minister, 2 deputy prime ministers. And then accommodate all ethnic communities in the country within that particular liberalized structure of the executive. In my view, the best way to deal with ethnic majoritarianism, best way to deal with the tyranny of numbers, and the best way to take the thunder away from Raila is to tell him, constitution change, we are agreed, let's change it. But then how do we change it? Let us introduce the position of prime minister, and let us make it non-executive. Then accommodate all communities, at least not, if not all, at least 5 communities. And if you do so, then you will not be accused of being only 2 communities that are dominating the rest. But also fundamentally here, remember that Uhuru was against this constitution. And he was right in denying it because this constitution is half-baked. Ruto led the assault against this constitution. So really you are preaching to the choir when you are telling them we need to change it. Still people believe it needs to be changed. So they need to say, this opportunity, we like it, we will occupy it, let's move in the direction of change the constitution and let us liberalize the executive.